is a sincere pleasure to welcome to CHGO for the first time the Notre Damer, as you can see, the former Bear, the first client ever of the new president and CEO, Kevin Warren. Chris Zorich, you're back in the news with Kevin. It was great to see you yesterday at Hallis Hall. You got a smile on your face. I assume this is like, maybe in your mind, the best thing the Bears have, I don't know, ever done outside of
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, outside of when I was a sophomore, I believe, in high school, they won the Super Bowl, and I went downtown to Daly Plaza and was climbing up one of the street lamps and saw the guys coming out of the escape hatch on the bus. Outside of that moment, this is probably the best moment ever. Well, then I got drafted by the Bears, so I mean, no offense, I love Kevin, but having a chance to get drafted, and then I actually have a letter. It's over my it's over right over here from Mike McCaskey, who's the president at the time, a letter saying, "Congratulations, you are drafted by the Chicago Bears." So I'm obviously a huge Bear fan. When I was a kid, having a chance to play for him, dream come true, and then all of a sudden, it's funny because although Kevin's a couple years older than I am, I almost feel like a proud dad, because I was the first way back when. So it's really funny.
Well, let's go back then to that point. You get drafted, you're looking for an agent. What drew you to Kevin Warren?
Well, a lot of what the media and folks had a chance to see yesterday, although he's wiser, has more gray hair and everything else, he's the same person. And so what folks got excited about listening to Kevin yesterday is what his sales speech was to me. And so you're talking about a 22-year-old kid who really didn't have a lot of direction, and all of a sudden this guy swoops in with this theory of what he wanted to do with a sports agency. And although he didn't have any clients, how would you like to go with me? Boom, boom. I mean, that was the pitch, right? And I mean, obviously joking there, but the crazy thing was that he would do small things. So I've been telling folks that, like, and this was way before cell phones and everything. So he would send me faxes. It wasn't just me; it was all his clients. But every week we would get a fax, and it would list important newsworthy events, like I mean, what was going on with the stock market, or who was elected president. I mean, all these things that you wouldn't think an athlete would be talking about. So the idea was he sent those to us to help us when we had a chance to talk to the media, or when we had a chance to talk to folks who weren't around football, to show them that we were just more, or we were more than just an athlete. We were actually people who actually knew knowledge about the current events.
Yeah. So
my only comment to that is, what agent does that, right? I mean, who does that? I mean, I don't think Drew Rodenhauser is sending faxes to his clients about, hey, this is what's going on in the stock market, or look what's going on in Europe. And so it just really intrigued me that he was willing to kind of care beyond the field, which was important.
Right. It sounds to me, when I hear that, this dude cares about you as a human being, not just somebody who's going to put money in his wallet or, okay, let me just take care of this guy and move along. He's actually, doing a full service. We had discussed on the show today, Chris, and I'm not saying that the Bears won't do this, but you kind of know both sides of this with the McCaskies. Do you think that they will be able to take their hands off the operation, so to speak? And I mean, Kevin said something yesterday about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And this organization has known not a lot of winning, but I think just being comfortable behind the scenes with, we own the Bears and this is a family thing. Do you think they'll actually let him do the things that he wants to do?
Well, first thing is, if not, they're crazy. Then why hire him, right? But when you really look at it, you're talking about 30 years of doing something one way. And instantly, it's not going to change overnight. I mean, we've been around. I mean, the idea is that change doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. And so Kevin talked about having a chance to interview or talk to each employee of the Bears. Hey, how can we be successful? If you were part of the McCaskey family, what would you do in order to win? I mean, these are things that I'm sure he did not only when he went to the Vikings, but when CEOs take over businesses. They don't walk in and the next day everything's different. They walk in and literally do a listening tour. So when I became the athletic director at Chicago State, that's what I did. I walked around and had a meeting with each employee and asked them the same thing Kevin's asking: why aren't we successful? What can we do in order to be successful? And I think those are the important things that you have to do when you're coming into a situation like this. And really, any situation, you have to listen. I mean, good leaders listen. And if you have a great idea, although you may be the janitor or you may be the interim soccer coach, as in my case, and you have an idea and it's good, why not use it? Even though I didn't think about it. I mean, I have to put my ego aside in order for us to be successful. And I think Kevin kind of summed it up perfectly. He works for them, right? He's not the president. He's not beating his chest saying, hey, I'm the president CEO. He said he's a servant leader and he's going to serve the people in Hallis Hall. And I think that's a different, it's very different than what they've had in the past. As a media person in a room, I don't know about you personally, but a lot of folks were kind of fired up. And if he can get the cynical media in Chicago fired up, then what about his future employees? What about guys on the team? What about people on the board? I mean, this is what you heard from Kevin yesterday, was who he is as a man. And again, he's a little bit older, wiser, but that was the same speech I heard 30 years ago.
And so I think the main reason why he's here, Chris, is because of the stadium and getting them into the next facility as grandiose as possible and, making it similar to what happened in Minnesota. But then I'm listening yesterday and he's saying that, I don't know, when I'm talking with Ryan Poles, it'll be like a husband and wife having a discussion. So do you think that he'll want to sort of be in the mix around who the Bears are drafting or what free agents, or is it more like, hey, have we done our full due diligence on this guy? Let's if you go back in time, the Bears didn't talk to Deshaun Watson when they drafted Mitch Trubisky, which is like, how did you not even talk to the dude who beat Alabama in the championship game? That can't be possible, but the Bears did it. So maybe he's just like, hey, I get you're hot on Mitch, but maybe you should also talk to this dude. Maybe he's doing that. Or maybe he's actually like, he says that he watches all the football, so maybe he wants to actually, be a part of some evaluations. I was a little confused as to what his role in his mind will be.
Well, I think if you kind of dig a little deeper, and obviously they didn't have an org chart at the press conference, but we're told that Poles will report to Kevin. And so anything that Kevin has responsibility for, he will make sure it will be successful. And I say that because I know for a fact that he will be the first person in the building at Hallis Hall, and he'll be the last person to leave. And there have been a couple times when he's been in Minnesota, again, I know this for a fact, that he's had suits in his closet at the Vikings facility because he's had to spend all night, slept on the couch, had meetings in the morning, brushed his teeth, whatever, boom, he's out there having a meeting. I mean, when you talk about that type of dedication, his area is going to be successful. So when I say, there wasn't an org chart, but the idea, if football reports to him, as everything else will, it will be as successful as possible. And again, it's not that, hey, he understands football, he was a football player, but the idea of he's been around football for over 20 years in the NFL at the highest level. And oh, by the way, he was also on the other side. So he understands how players feel about organizations. He understands how players should be treated and respected by organizations. So he's done kind of everything else except had this presidential role with an NFL team, which I think is vitally important, right? And when you look at what he's done recently with the Big Ten, who in the world, and I've been in collegiate athletics, and before you hear a move that happens, you hear rumors about something. But I could guarantee you probably were as surprised as everybody else was when you found out that USC and UCLA are going to join the Big Ten. I mean, it was like, what? Wait, what happened? There were no rumors or nothing. So you're able to do that. You're able to put together an $8 billion deal for media rights deal for the Big Ten. And really, he's the perfect person for this job at the right time.
Do you think he wants to be the NFL commissioner someday?
I think he wants to be the president of the Chicago Bears. And I think if that's something that may happen or could happen, that'd be great. But I think, as we had a chance to hear, I mean, he has passion about Chicago. He has passion about winning for the fans of Chicago, for the administration, for George Halas, for the McCaskey family, for the alumni, for everybody. And I mean, I was sitting there kind of laughing and excited and smiling because, again, this is the Kevin that I know and love, but he finally had a chance to kind of present himself to the Chicago media, and y'all were fired up. And so even if nothing else, if he didn't win a game for that moment in time, for that hour and a half, y'all were fired up because it was something different than what we were used to at Halas Hall. And it wasn't a coach, right? Because oftentimes, and this is the funny thing, it's like, well, you kind of mentioned in the beginning, is this one of your most exciting moments for the Bears? And you think about it, and you compare an organization like the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I use this because this is a great example. And I'm sure you would know this, but how many head coaches do you think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had since 1969?
3? Am I right?
3.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
Unlike the Chicago Bears, I mean, it seems like every 2 years, we're popping up, every 2-3 years, we're popping up new coaches. And so when you say this much excitement hasn't really been around since you've hired a great head coach, but that was kind of the norm, and you haven't done this in the past 30 years. So I think that's why everybody's excited.
No doubt. And hopefully what you're talking about with the media being excited, we're reflecting the fan base. Like that's
Absolutely
that's the goal. I thought that, just a media touch thing that nobody cares about, but just shows his sort of understanding of the room. I've never met Kevin Warren. I asked him a question. Good to see you, Mark. Like, he like that. Those little things just show relationship. It matters. That stuff matters.
And it's the small things. In order to be successful at anything, you have to take care of the small things. I was fortunate enough to be involved in a national championship with the University of Notre Dame, with Coach Holtz, and it was about taking care of the little things. And those are these life lessons that we've learned as athletes going through Notre Dame, is that in order to be successful, you have to take care of the little things. And if the little things is acknowledging someone who's asking him a question, he's saying, hey, guess what? I respect you. Now you can respect me as well. And he mentioned your first name. And so those are the small things that you'll see that people might not notice. So you noticed it. And I'm sure other folks that address him that may have never met him before have noticed it as well. But again, this is part of who he is. And he's been around enough teams, he's been around the media, that this isn't, he's just doing this because he's a president now. This is what Kevin was doing. This is what he taught us way back in the day as his clients. And so the idea is that he practiced what he preaches.
Did he ever talk to you like, man, I guess I asked him this, and he was like, the only person I ever spoke to this to was his wife. But did you ever, maybe if he didn't say it, just get the sense that, when Ted moves along, Kevin would want this job badly? Did that ever cross your mind?
Oh, no. And I was really surprised because he was a rock star at the Big Ten. I thought he was doing great work. People give him a hard time because he shut down half the football season, getting death threats and all that crazy stuff. But, I mean, no one had a playbook for that. And he was doing the best interest of the 10,000 student athletes that he was over. And I think he addressed that when someone asked him about Justin Fields. Said, oh, hey, he's on the team. He's the quarterback now. I was like, man, I would have done the same thing as a player. Like, I wanted to play as a player. I wanted to play, and I'm pissed off, and I want to play.
Right. And erring on the side of caution in his shoes at the time made a whole lot of sense. And then he got further information and whatever made
which I think, and I don't mean to cut you off, Mark, but which shows to you what type of leader he is. Okay, so he could have said, you know what, I'm gonna stand with my decision 100%. And even if he got the information, his ego may have said, you know what, I made this decision. A lot of people are going to be upset. They may think I'm wavering. No, you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns. No, he listened. And I think that's what's important, what we talked about before. When you're a good leader, when you look at great leaders, they listen because they don't know anything. And it's that ego that they can put on the side and say, hey, you know what, Mark, I don't know something. You know it a lot better than me. Can you teach me, or can you help me on this project? Can you help me do this? And he's willing to put that ego aside in order to do that. And I think that's important.
It's a great point. And that's like, for those of us who become adults at some point in our life, and I say those of us because some of us never do, to be able to say you're right and just own it. Like last night, I'm sitting there. Were you texting all the way down when you were driving? Yes, I was. And you're right. I shouldn't. I was. Right. I could give you all the I was being careful. Not a good choice. You're right. It's not. Thank you. No problem. I was wrong.
But when a person kind of mans up for that, like you, I mean, your friends, your buddies, wife, whoever, the idea of being able to admit you're wrong is important, because that means that you're secure in yourself. That means that, hey, you're able to own up to the responsibility of being wrong. And guess what? When you're wrong, you learn, or you should learn from it, right? And so all of these success stories you heard about, perfect one is Michael Jordan, right? He was cut from his high school team, right? I mean, these are, you learn from your mistakes, or you learn from adversity. And so if we lived in a society where everything was perfect, guess what? We wouldn't have a lot of good leaders.
Let me wrap up with this. When I came up and saw you at the presser afterwards, you said something which I if you're not comfortable with this, we won't go any further. But you were like, basically like
at the presser.
But you were just like, hey, like the Bears don't even know who they hired. Like they don't know how good of a hire this is. So maybe just underline like what you think is coming with Kevin as the president and CEO.
Sure, and they've done the research. Like they hired a good search firm. They did their due diligence. Okay, but the person you should have on, the person that knows everything, is his assistant May, who's been with him since he started. Right, she was employee number one. I was client number one. Right, so like literally in the back of his wife's dad's barbecue restaurant, he had this tiny office, and they shared a table. And he would answer the phone, Kevin Warren and Associates, and his assistant May would be laughing like, "Oh, now I'm an associate now. This is great, right?" But that's the person that you can really understand and know who Kevin is, right? And I'm sure that they obviously had a chance to talk to her. But when I say they don't know who they have, I mean, I've known Kevin for 30 years. He's not changed. He's been a great person, great leader, great mentor for me, inspired me to go to law school. And they now have an individual like that who inspires people, who respects people, who goes beyond the call, who's going to be the hardest worker in the building. Yes, you have great athletes that are paying millions and millions of dollars, but I guarantee you, and I say this, and I know this is going to be true because I'm laughing, he's going to be the first person. If it's 4:00 in the morning, you're going to see Kevin's car parked out there. And if it's 9, 10, 11, 2:00 in the morning, you're still going to see his car out there. So when you have an individual who is made up of that type of character, who understands his responsibilities and is willing to go the extra mile, I mean, he mentioned taking folks from the Big Ten to Selma, Alabama. I mean, who does that? And I know people can, but he did it. And so, I mean, the idea of this is not just, hey, I'm the commissioner of the Big Ten, look what I did. This is a learning experience for those around him and those who entrust their sports team. And so, again, he may not win a game, period, during his tenure, let's say, but you are going to get somebody who's going to work the hardest in that building. And when he's in control of the organization, you're going to do nothing but have success, because at the end of the day, people are going to want to emulate what he's doing, right? When I was like, man, I want to be like Kevin. I want to go to law school. I want to do the things that he's done because he's done it the right way and he's successful. I want to be like him. And I was 22. And I was very, very impressionable. So,
where'd you go to law school? Congratulations on doing that.
The University of Notre Dame. I didn't stray very far. Undergrad, played for well, then this is the funny part. Like, I retired and then I was 27, 28, and then went to law school. Like, who does that? Like, I didn't have a chance to like go to Bali. I mean, I didn't have a chance to take a little vacation. I literally finished the season, and then next May I was enrolled in law school. So, I mean, excuse me, next September I was enrolled in law school, which was insane.
That's hey man, that's a driven Chris Zorich. It's part of the reason why you got to the NFL. It's part of the reason why you played at Notre Dame. It's part of the highest level in college. Made it to the pros. Lasted over half a decade. How many guys can say that in life? About, I don't know, less than 1/10 of 1%. You were in the most exclusive country club on the planet. I'm extremely jealous. Congratulations. It's
Thank you very
amazing.
Much. I appreciate it. And what some of that focus was from Kevin. And so, I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm just excited. I feel like a proud dad, right? Because the idea that now people are going to have a chance to kind of see the type of person that Kevin is, but more importantly, what the end result will be, and it will be success. And he's going to do it the right way.
All right, last one here. I kept you twice as long as I said, so I appreciate all the time.
You're fine.
Well, let's just talk about the alumni part, because I did the Bears postgame show on WGN Radio for 7 years with Dan Hampton and Obradovich, and I know that when Matt Eberflus got hired, he reached out to Hampton, meant the world to him. I've seen many comments. I was reading today an old piece where Gary Fensick's talking about how they've never reached out to him. You've talked about the alumni part, and I just, what are you hoping to see here with Kevin, and how do you think this will go as far as bringing back so many great guys who have a tremendous passion around the team that they played for?
Well, I think it's encouraging when, as Kevin's talking about his constituents, right? Folks that care about the organization. He talked about the McCaskies. He talked about Hallis. He talked about the fans. He talked about the players. And he threw alumni in there. And he said alumni several times as he was talking about that. This is a person that's been involved in the NFL for more than 20 years. He understands. He's been around the league. He sees what other teams have done. I'm sure he doesn't know exactly how the alumni relationships are with the Chicago Bears, but when he finds that out, he may see some improvements that may be needed. Now, as a former player, as an alum, there was a time where it was, I don't want to say it was silence, but the relationship wasn't good. And then probably maybe the last 10, 12 years, it's increased. And now they embrace the players. But there was a period where there weren't. And then I thought it was, well, man, was it me? Because when I got cut, I was pissed off and I made a couple bad comments. Was it me? But then I talked to other guys and folks didn't contact them either. And so there is a change. And I really think that Brian McCaskey, who was in charge of alumni relations at the time, he really went around the league. He went and talked to people. He really improved the alumni relations. And that's where that kind of movement started. And now, we receive pins. We receive an opportunity to get an alumni ring. There's banquets throughout the year. There's golf outings that all the guys get invited to. You're getting appearances now. For a while there, guys weren't getting appearances. And so, it makes somebody feel good. I'm 53 now. When they say, hey, Chris, can you come down and sign autographs for fans? I mean, that makes you feel good because you gave your blood, sweat, and tears for the organization, and they kind of still think about you. So that's really important for the guys that really kind of had a chance to come. But more importantly, for the current guys, they can see how the alumni are being treated. And so when they know when their time is done, then they can look and say, oh, well, this is an organization that really respects their alumni.
And that's the biggest part of it. Like, I look, first of all, the fans love when you're sitting there, or when guys that I just mentioned, Fensick,
Sure.
Hampton, Singletary, who name a Bear that the fans rooted for at any point in time. They love. That's a great thing for the fans. It's a great thing for you guys. And how does it matter as far as the team now? It matters because you show the players that you're cared about, and so maybe you do get just a little extra appreciation, a little extra effort, just knowing you're a part of something really special here in Chicago, which is what they're trying to build. And it sounds like you're very optimistic, and I think Bears fans are optimistic right now that Kevin's going to make an enormous difference, stadium and culture and all of it. But it's super cool, Chris. Like, full circle, man. Your guy is now running the show.
It's just so amazing because I remember a couple phone calls back in the day between him and Ted that somebody slammed some doors, somebody slammed some phones. I think I may have ripped the phone off a wall somewhere down the line, but it's just one of those situations where, as you said, it's kind of full circle, and now the person that he was kind of had an adversarial relationship with is now succeeding him as president. Yeah.
Well, hey, we'll be paying attention, and let's keep this relationship going with CHGO. We look forward to talking down the line here.
Sounds awesome. I had a blast. Thanks.
Yeah. Chris Zorich, everybody. We'll see. Thanks for watching.